Hello my dear friends. This short video is really a soul reflection for each one of us to embrace our heart and ask truthfully as we stand in the presence of God, are our religious leaders acting honorably for God? And if they are, then blessed be. And if not, what do we do as a child of God? Do we go behind their back and discredit them? I hope not. Or do we bring this to God in prayer, asking God for advice? I choose the latter, because prayer is a powerful weapon against the forces of evil that seek to discredit God's chosen people, especially religious leaders. But interestingly, what's been happening of late is that something rather unusual happened at the birthplace of Francis in Assisi, when all of the world religious leaders gathered for a time of peace and unity, and uniting in their hearts as representatives of one God. But what is so alarming is what came to light. Please allow me to read a reflection from a good man whose spirituality is sound and grounded, and that's our dear brother William Bloom. And he says in the autumn issue of Cygnus, in the same week as the Woman's Hour interview, I also found myself asking whether the Pope too possessed the necessary spiritual tools. It came to mind because at the Interfaith Peace event in Assisi, the home of St. Francis, attended by him and 300 representatives of other major faiths, these spiritual leaders could not bring themselves to worship together. How deeply sad is that? They couldn't worship together in the same room. Instead, they all retired to their private spaces in order to pray for peace simultaneously and avoid possibly offending or being offended by the religious practices of others. This dismayed William because at the first of these Assisi gatherings initiated by Pope John Paul II in 1986, and I remember that well, it was a momentous event, an event that went down in the history of the Catholic Church. And as a Catholic Christian, I was so delighted to see the figurehead of my church reaching out to all religious leaders and saying, "Come, let us go to the birthplace of Francis, a man of peace, and let us share our love of the one God in agape." But William was dismayed because on this occasion, Pope Benedict gave a set of new directives. He says he takes the view, like many clerics and theologians, that it is unhealthy for different forms of worship and belief to be combined or syncretized because it dilutes and weakens the core faith. This is surely precisely where the practical tools of spirituality can be so important, because these strategies work more deeply than just psychological belief and faith. These same tools and techniques can be found at the heart of all spiritual approaches, helping people to deepen and expand their spiritual experiences. And here are examples of just 3 of the better known, and I am sure that you will not be surprised by any of them if I could package and put them in the Christmas stocking of every spiritual seeker. The first strategy he talks about is the ability to ground, earth and center, to come down and sink comfortably into the temples of our bodies. What a gift. The second is the skill of a compassionate detachment, the ability to step back from our immediate feelings and thoughts, and then guide and manage them effectively. And our third solstice gift is the strategy of being able carefully and consciously to open and close our energy fields. Then when we want, we can open up more fully to spirit. And he goes on. But what I find so challenging as a Catholic Christian, independent, lay monastic, I embrace the teachings of Jesus, little Therese of Lisieux and Francis of Assisi, but I also have a great respect for all the world religious leaders and teachers, Gandhi being one of them, the Lord Buddha, Vishnu, Ganesh, Krishna. I'm not interfaith. I embrace interspirituality because it's at the core of my being as a child of God. And Francis of Assisi, I could imagine that his spirit was offended with these new directives from the leader of my church. Francis was interspiritual. He was a friend of Sufis. He had a love of Rumi and all his wonderful poetry. And that he handed down to his followers. How must his followers have felt when the Pope came along with these directives, and instead of praying with the 300 delegates as his predecessor did back in 1986, I can imagine that God was non-pleased, because the cry of Jesus on the cross, the barefoot Galilean, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then he went on to say, I pray that they will be one as you and I are one. How can you and I be one when our religious leaders have their own personal agenda? And I know, and it's painful to say this, and when I do say it, please don't presume that I am anti-Catholic. I am not. I am a committed Catholic Christian who's on the outside looking in as an independent lay Franciscan, living the contemplative life. But I say this before God, and I say it from a good heart, from a place of love, that what John Paul II did was truly God touching his children to unite in love and endorse the core values of Franciscan spirituality. But then, in 2006, Pope Benedict came along and closed the Interfaith Centre for Dialogue in Assisi and had all the Franciscans confined to the control of 2 bishops. Is that God speaking to us? So I believe that we have to render an account to God the things that belong to God. And when the Holy Father came to our country, I wrote to the Cardinal-elect, Vincent Nichols, and I said, I willingly welcome Pope Benedict, but I need clarification because of what happened in Assisi. And he said, no, the Holy Father endorses interfaith. If that is true, then why didn't he promote a communal gathering of brothers and sisters of different beliefs? Why did he issue a set of directives for people to go away and pray alone for peace? Wouldn't it have been better to do what Pope John Paul II did and pray with one another together. So I do believe that we have to challenge our religious leaders from love. And we have to ask them why they do what they do in the name of God. Otherwise, we have religious abuse, and we've seen enough of that, and the complacency and the duplicity. We have a duty of care.